Spine-chilling secrets exposed, 7 sinister true scary tales to haunt your sleep as rain falls. Sarah promised herself that tonight would be different. Just a quick dinner, a chapter from their favorite book, and then they would settle in for a quiet evening. But as the rain pelted against the windows, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. After a long shift at the hospital, fatigue clung to her like a shroud. She closed her eyes for just a moment, but when she reopened them, shadows flickered just beyond the porch light. They danced, merging with the darkness outside, blurring the lines between reality and something much darker. Then, the tapping began. It was soft but constant, resonating against the window panes like a child drumming their fingers in anticipation. Heart in her throat, Sarah pulled the curtains tighter. The comforting 4 walls of her home now felt like a prison, her children nestled in their beds, blissfully unaware of the sinister atmosphere encroaching upon them. Anxiety twisted in her gut. It was as if her own space had turned hostile, holding secrets she couldn't yet understand. Days slipped by, but dread hung over Sarah like a thick fog. Neighbors offered furtive glances, avoiding her gaze as whispers wove through the air like a ghostly wind. Officer Tom, once a friendly face in the neighborhood, stood on her porch one evening, the chill of his concern making her uneasy. "Everything all right, Sarah?" he asked, the sweetness of his voice stark against the tightening chill in her chest. She nodded but could see the uncertainty lurking behind his mask of charm. Had something changed? Was it them? Or was it her, listening to the news, hearing the haunting tales of disappearances surrounding the once peaceful Willow Creek? As storm clouds brewed in the distance, her instincts kicked into overdrive, the volume rising within her as the shadows lingered at the edges of her home like predators waiting to pounce. Late at night, when the world outside was swallowed by darkness, she thought she heard faint cries, lost souls begging for recognition, their pain echoing in her dreams. She bolted upright, sweat slicking her palms, heart racing. Was it fear or intuition that gnawed at her, shadowing her every move? Then came that fateful night. Waking to the faintest creak, Sarah froze. A sound that didn't belong to her children, a sound that cut through the silence like a knife. Shadows swirled at the periphery of her vision, and dread cascaded down her spine. She gripped the framed photo of her family, a talisman tinged with panic, her breath catching in the growing stillness. What if this time, it wasn't just the storm? The power flickered, dimming the light, wrapping her in a suffocating shroud of darkness. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the last glow of the light snuffed out, she stood on the precipice of terror, knowing something waited in the dark. The whispers grew louder, insistent, picking at the seams of her sanity. Every space between breaths was filled with foreboding as she stepped into the hall. The shadows beckoned, promising to unveil their horrific truths, but also promising danger. Her heart pounded like a war drum, echoing through the stillness. What awaited her? Secrets that would unravel the very essence of her family's safety? Or would she step into something more sinister, and encounter with the darkness that had been hiding in Willow Creek all along? The tension surged, leaving her breathless with dread, poised at the precipice of a discovery that could shatter her world forever. The air thickened with an unseen malice as Sarah stepped further into the hall, her heart pounding in a steady rhythm of terror. Each creak of the floorboards beneath her feet felt like a harbinger of doom. Shadows pulsated and shifted, elongating like fingers towards her as she moved deeper into the darkness. The once familiar contours of her home morphed into a sinister labyrinth, and instinct screamed at her to retreat, yet curiosity pulled her forward. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, shattering the fragile silence like glass. Sarah gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. Terror sparked in her chest, and for a fleeting moment, she thought of fleeing to the safety of her children, but her legs felt rooted in place. Dread settled like a stone in her stomach as she considered what might be waiting in the kitchen, a scenario her mind shunned but couldn't escape. "Mom." The soft, frightened voice of her youngest, Lily, broke through the anguish of her silence. Sarah's heart twisted painfully. "Mom, what is happening?" "Stay in your room, sweetie," she called, forcing strength into her voice despite the tremor gripping her. "I'm coming." With that, she swiveled toward the kitchen, fighting the icy fingers of fear that threatened to paralyze her. As she moved closer, the shadows pushed against her, swirling with intent, almost alive. What had been a mere flicker of unease a week ago was now a consuming force that overwhelmed her sense of safety. When she reached the doorway, the dim light from the hallway pooled around her like a faint halo, and the darkness of the kitchen loomed ahead, hypnotic yet horrifying. The shattered remains of a ceramic plate littered the floor, stark white against the deep abyss of black. She squinted into the chaos, searching for movement, for life, but the only sound was the relentless drip of water, each plop echoing ominously in the stillness, as if marking her heartbeat. Her mind raced. Had someone been in here? A sense of violation crawled up her spine. Then came the whispers again, clearer now, laced with urgency and pain. "Help us find us." Sarah's skin prickled as icy fingers of realization brushed against her. Who were the voices? The lost souls she had heard in her dreams. Panic surged, and she clutched the doorway for support. "Lily!" she yelled, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Stay put." The whispers seemed to grow louder, a cacophony of anguish drawing her further into the darkness. It echoed around her, wrapping her in dread. One word drifted over the others, cutting through the chaos like a knife: "Mom." With a lurch of instinct, Sarah backtracked, firing back down the hallway, her pulse racing. As she turned the corner, she collided with Officer Tom, standing there with his flashlight cutting through the gloom, an unsettling smile on his face. "Everything all right, Sarah?" "I thought I heard something." The flash of anxiety crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced with an odd calmness that sent chills down her spine. I heard something in the kitchen," she stammered, glancing back as if someone else might emerge from the darkness. "Maybe it was just the storm," he suggested, but his tone lacked conviction. Then, like a dam breaking, the whispers returned, echoing from right behind her. "Help us find us." Sarah's breath ragged as she looked into Tom's eyes, searching for truth. But she could see it, a flicker of something lurking there, something dark. "They're not gone, are they?" she breathed, feeling the chill of dread wrap tighter around her. "What do you mean?" Tom's smile faded, and the shadows seemed to close in around them, closing their escape routes. I think they're still here." At that, the flickering lights surged back to life, casting an unearthly glow on Tom's face, revealing the dark hollows beneath his eyes. Sarah's heart sank as she backed away slowly, realizing that the darkness she feared wasn't just outside. The ground beneath her shifted, and the unthinkable possibility settled in her mind: it wasn't just her. There was a deeper, more sinister presence at play. In Willow Creek, a truth that could drown her family in terror. In the disquiet that followed, the night felt heavier, pregnant with secrets waiting to be unleashed. What had she uncovered? And could she protect her children from the horrors that lurked just beyond her grasp? Before she could take another step, the power cut again, plunging them back into suffocating darkness. Sarah's heart raced in the void, and a single thought raced through her mind: who could she trust when dread seeped into every corner of her world? Then, a chilling laugh echoed from the depths of the shadows. It wasn't just the storm anymore. As the laughter faded into silence, she knew the true horror was just beginning. The darkness pressed against Sarah like a living entity, heavy and suffocating. Each breath felt like a struggle, the air thick with unspoken dread. Glaring eyes glimmered in the shadows, reflecting the faint light when the power flickered back to life, but Officer Tom stood there, an unsettling silhouette. He seemed to merge with the obscurity, his features twisted in ways she couldn't comprehend. Silence enveloped them again, broken only by the rattling of her heartbeat. "Sarah," he said, his voice smooth yet strangely hollow. "You really shouldn't be here. You're not safe." With each word, the shadows crawled closer, whispering secrets only they knew. Panic surged through her, propelling her to the side. "My kids, they're upstairs." His smile tightened, a hallowed semblance of reassurance. "I'll check on them." "No." The word slipped out, raw and desperate. "No, stay here with me." She didn't know why she felt that way, but the instinct was primal, the need to keep at least one person she could see close. But as she took another step back, Tom's expression shifted, and the fear in his gaze matched her own. "Whatever you heard, it's not real," but she knew better. The laughter that echoed around them wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It grew louder, a grotesque chorus of past sorrows and unfulfilled promises, creeping closer. Shadows crescendoed, coiling around him and leaving only a thin line of light to separate them. "Help us find us," the whispers were now intertwined, a haunting plea that clawed at the edges of her sanity. "What is happening?" The words fell from her lips like a prayer. "Where are you taking me?" "Sarah, listen." Tom's warning was cut off as a crash reverberated from above, sending a jolt through her. The sound of shattering glass mingled with a chilling scream, and her heart plummeted. "Lily! Lily!" she screamed, breaking away from Tom, who stood rooted in place, his expression caught between confusion and fear. As she sprinted for the staircase, shadows hissed and writhed, grasping at her arms, tugging her back as if the very essence of the darkness sought to claim her. Each step felt like wading through syrup, thick and unyielding. Suddenly, the hallway warped, and the creaking floorboards echoed her spiraling dread. The house felt alive, the walls pressing inward, as if it wanted to swallow her whole. Another scream rang out, sharper this time, and she faltered, her heart racing in rhythm with the panic coursing through her veins. "Mom! Help!" That voice, so small and desperate, shattered the world around her. It was a siren call that drowned out the sinister laughter swirling through the air. Sarah's feet moved of their own accord, pounding up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Dark shapes flitted at the edges of her vision, scraping at her sanity, but she pushed on, fueled by the essence of a mother's love. Finally reaching the door of Lily's room, she threw it open, only to be met with a chilling sight. The room was empty. The bed was untouched, the stuffed animals arranged in a perfect line. But on the wall, smeared across the pale surface, was a message written in something crimson. "Help us!" A fresh wave of horror crashed over her. Lily was gone. "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice echoing into the hollow depths of the house. "This isn't happening." But she knew it was. The laughter rose again, now swirling around her, wrapping her in its dreadful embrace. She turned to run back down the staircase, panic igniting every nerve, when a hand emerged from the shadows, grabbing her wrist with bone-crushing force. "Tom!" But as she looked up, she didn't see Thomas's reassuring face, only a monstrous grin filled with teeth too sharp and eyes too dead to be human. "Help us find us!" Trapped in the grip of the horrifying apparition, Sarah felt the world close in. What had begun as a simple night turned into a terrifying descent into a nightmare. With a scream that shattered the silence, she was pulled into the void once more. What awaited her on the other side? What truth would she uncover, and would she find her daughter before it was too late? As the darkness surged, swallowing her whole, her last thought lingered: this was only the beginning. The darkness enveloped Sarah, a smothering weight that made every inch feel like a battle. As she was dragged into the void, a crushing chill swept through her body, etching a fear deeper than physical pain into her bones. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. Being snatched from one nightmare into another, the world twisted around her, spinning out of control, until she landed hard on a damp floor. It smelled of mildew and decay, an echo of wrongness that twisted in her gut. Gasping, she pushed herself up, panic coursing through her with each heartbeat. The air was electric, filled with a static charge that buzzed against her skin. "Lily!" she cried, her voice cracking as it echoed through the dark space. Silence answered, heavy and oppressive. A hollow echo bounced off the crumbling walls, teasing her as if her plea were nothing more than a cruel joke. Shadows passed close by, brushing against her, making her skin crawl. The laughter she had heard earlier turned into a sinister symphony of whispers, weaving through the air like smoke. "Help us find us, who are you?" Sarah yelled, clenching her fists in defiance as she scrambled to her feet. The shadows pulsed, contracting and expanding around her. They seemed to be alive, whispering tales of despair and loss. Tremors of fear rippled through her body, but she wouldn't give in. Moving forward, she stumbled upon a doorway, a jagged opening that beckoned her with a sliver of light. Heart pounding, she edged closer. The light flickered furiously, and for a moment, Sarah thought she saw a figure dart within, a flash of movement that made her pulse race. Lily. The name surged from her, a desperate mantra fueled by hope despite the gnawing fear clawing at her mind. Pushing through the doorway, she found herself in another room larger, with walls covered in peeling wallpaper that seemed to ripple like a living thing. The air thickened, and her breath caught. Suddenly, a child's laughter rang out, pure and sweet yet tinged with an otherworldly echo. It filled the room, wrapping around her like a warm blanket, pushing back the terror that enveloped her. "Mommy! Help us! Lily!" This time, she could place the sound, the innocence that cut through the horror. She sprinted toward the source, her heart racing, ready to scoop her daughter into her arms. But as she rounded the corner, the laughter morphed into chilling giggles mixed with cries that chilled her to the marrow. There, in the center of the room, she saw them, a circle of children, faces pale with anguish, eyes black as night, their mouths wide in laughter that rippled into sobs. "Help us," they chorused, their hands reaching out, fingers elongated and twisted, beckoning her closer. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, stepping back as dread seized her. The room tilted, walls undulating, shadows spiraling like dark whirlwinds. The children's laughter twisted into a cacophony, a sound meant to ensnare, to trap. Every shiver of their ghostly forms filled her with a helpless horror, the piercing familiarity turning her blood cold. "Where's Lily?" she cried, but the phantoms only continued their twisted song, oblivious to her terror. Desperately, she turned to flee, hoping to escape back through the doorway she had entered, but it was gone. The laughter grew louder, throbbing against her skull. Shadows engulfed her, a tidal wave of dark intent. She clutched her head, sinking to her knees, panic coursing through her veins like ice. And then she remembered, Officer Tom, the twisted figure in the shadows, warned her of this fate. "Help us, find us." The innocent cries now morphed into a bone-chilling command. In that moment, the world began to swirl. She needed to make a choice. But what if the truth opened a door to danger beyond her comprehension? The shadows closed in, and Sarah felt the weight of their demands crush her resolve. Would she save her daughter at the risk of her own soul? The choice hung heavily in the air, unspoken, as she plunged deeper into the abyss, the shadows beckoning her to give in. The laughter pulsed until it became a scream, echoing through the darkness. What awaited her at the end of this twisted journey? Would she even recognize the truth when it emerged from the shadows? The shadows loomed closer, thick and hungry, pressing against Sarah. Panic gripped her heart, squeezing tightly as the air turned icy. She willed herself to move but felt paralyzed by the overwhelming dread. "Find us." The whispers grew urgent, each repetition more demanding, more desperate. In a swirl of torment, a vision broke through, a flicker of light, a path she might take. She surged forward into the unseen, praying for an escape, hoping against hope that the whispers would lead her to Lily. The darkness shifted, and moments slipped away from her grasp. Rushing through the murk, she tried to shut out the clamoring voices. Focusing on each step, she could swear she heard a soft whimper amidst the cacophony. It was more than a sound, it was a plea. "Lily! I'm coming!" The words erupted from her mouth with fierce determination. She pressed onward, drawn toward the whimper, to the very heart of the darkness. In a desperate flurry, her fingers brushed against Texture's slimy, cold, unnatural walls. A doorframe? No, merely an illusion, crumbling and fleeting. And there it was again. She stopped dead, heart in her throat. "Mommy!" The cry was clearer, more defined. Hope surged like a lightning bolt through her veins, cutting through the fog. But there was something wrong, something beyond wrong, a chant, a relentless pulling toward the children. "Help us find us," echoed louder than before, a twisted mantra ringing like a funeral chime. The air thickened with malevolence, and the weight of hidden eyes pressed down upon her. The edges of darkness blurred, transforming into figures, their shapes trailing whispers of despair. Sarah's pulse quickened. Were they watching her, waiting? "Lily!" She yelled again, voice trembling. She forcefully moved forward, eyes scanning the room. Shadows danced like fireflies, teasing, leading, hiding. But then the laughter returned, ghostly and dissonant, spiraling her thoughts into chaos. "Come play with us." It was the voice of a child, yet far too sinister, far too seductively tainted. As if summoned by her thoughts, the figures moved, parting to reveal a small door barely illuminated at the far end of the room. Sarah squinted at it, hope swelling, aching in her chest. This could lead her to Lily, but the allure of those lost cries coiled tightly around her memories. "Help us!" They beckoned again, their faces contorted in a mix of joy and anguish. In that moment, doubt crept in like a venomous fog. What if she was too late? What if Lily had become one of them, her laughter forever mingling in the cries for release? The shadows flared, an undulating sea of despair that threatened to engulf her. This was no simple choice, this was an impossible dilemma. In an instant, Sarah grasped the doorknob, feeling the chill seeping into her bones. Her intuition screamed at her to turn away, to save herself, but the thought of Lily's face twisted her insides. Clenching her jaw, she turned the knob and heaved the door open with a deafening creak. A burst of blinding light filled the space, and her heart fluttered with hope. But beyond stood not salvation. It was a reflection of her worst fears, a mirror of despair filled with muddied faces, hollow eyes, and the laughter of children turned to screams. "Mommy! Help us! Is it too late?" She breathed, realizing the horrifying truth that this realm was hungry, insatiable for more. The door slammed shut behind her. Panic surged. She spun around only to find darkness lined with countless faces, the walls closing in. Every breath she took felt heavier, drowning her spirit in an ocean of shadows. The children were closer now. "Stay with us." Sarah's heart raced. Every instinct screamed to fight back, yet the terror held her tightly. She was trapped. What lay ahead could only promise horrors, but the cries of her daughter urged her forward. Would she yield to their call, forever lost in this void? The air crackled as the shadows tightened their hold. As she made her choice, a dark figure loomed in the corner of her eye. It was familiar. The officer from before. A voice whispered, "Now. You see, the truth is a terrible thing." And then, everything shattered around her in an unspeakable terror. What had she unwittingly unleashed? The world splintered into fragments. Sarah flinched as the laughter morphed into a cacophony of screams, deepening her despair. She turned, fighting against spectral hands grasping for her, dragging her down into their eternal nightmare. Shadows closed in, pulling her apart piece by piece. "Stay with us." A chorus of familiar voices echoed, each one a haunting reflection of lost children reaching out to her, a plea wrapped in desperation. "Lily!" It was more a gasp than a scream. Anxiety clawed at her throat, and the shadows twisted tighter, enveloping her body in a chilling embrace. She felt the pressing fear of being forgotten, devoured by the darkness. It felt alive, pulsing as it constricted around her. Mustering every ounce of will, she plunged forward through the swarm of ghostly figures, her chest heaving, heart racing wildly. She could feel their icy breath against her skin, whispers of temptation curling around her ears. "Why fight? You can have them back," they taunted, their voices dripping with seduction. The officer's face flickered in her memory, shifting between reassurance and despair. Find the truth. He warned, eyes darkening. What did he mean? The truth, was it something she even wanted to uncover? Each step felt heavier, anchoring her deeper into the void. But as another cry from Lily resonated through the darkness, anguish pierced her heart. I will find you. The promise burst from her lips, raw and desperate, digging deep into her memories. She recalled the way Lily's laughter would brighten the darkest days. How her daughter would whirl through the living room, leaving trails of sunlight and magic, turning mundane moments into cherished memories. But now, that laughter was a ghostly echo, a reminder of what was at stake. Suddenly, a flicker, a glow far ahead. A doorway bathed in an eerie twilight, pulsating with an inviting warmth. With every instinct, she bolted toward it, our hope, our salvation. But the shadows were relentless, pulling her back with their claws of darkness. They whispered insidiously, "Don't go, stay with us, let me go." She shouted, breaking free from their grasp momentarily. But another voice cut through the air, soft like a caress yet laced with venom. You can't leave us, Sarah. You belong here. We're all waiting. Panic surged anew as she slowed, catching sight of her own reflection in a thin wall of mist. Hollow, vacant, the face staring back was not her own. It was one of those sorrowful lost souls, eyes wide with fear yet glistening with an unnatural hunger. Trembling, she willed her feet to move. If the door was real, if there was even the slimmest chance that it would lead her to Lily, she couldn't linger. The idea of becoming one of them, one of the lost shadows, snaked through her mind. Mommy! The cry erupted again, this time resonant with unbearable grief. It was a plea wrapped in an urgent cry for help, pulling at her heartstrings violently. There was no question now. She had to fight, to push through, no matter the cost. With renewed determination, she reached the door. As her hand grasped the handle, the laughter turned to screams, a whirlwind of anguish flooding her ears. You can't leave. You'll lose her forever. No. She shouted back into the darkness, twisting the handle with a force born of desperation. The door squealed open, revealing a world bathed in a fluorescent light that hurt her eyes, like being thrust back into the living. But what stood before her was not the safe haven she hoped for. It was more looming darkness, a vast chasm with no floor and no end. As she dangled at the threshold, shadows coiling around her ankles like rising water, she glimpsed something fluttering in the depths. Was it a dress? Was it Lily? The terror twisted in her gut, a knife of fear. Mommy! Help! It beckoned her again, just as her resolve reached breaking point. A figure lunged forward from the shadows, a woman, her face a grotesque mask of anguish, reaching out toward Sarah, her grip grabbing at the air menacingly. Don't let them take you. Don't trust them. The figure cried before being pulled back with a spine-chilling shriek. Time slowed, heart pounding as Sarah stared into the abyss ahead. Could she leap into the depths? Would it be a rescue or her doom? The shadows screeched, a monstrous choir desperate to keep her from the truth. She could almost feel their breath on her skin, a rancid mix of despair and madness that threatened to consume her. In that heartbeat, she made a fateful choice, a reckless leap into the unseen. The moment of truth awaited her, terrifying yet exhilarating. What awaited Sarah on the other side, and could she truly rescue Lily, or was she sealing their fates forever? The moment Sarah plunged into the void, the world exploded in a cascade of blinding light. Her body twisted in the air, weightless, fear knotting her stomach. An instant later, she crashed onto a hard surface, gasping for air. Everything felt different. The air was thick, electric. No longer were the chilling whispers of the shadows ringing in her ears. Now, silence enveloped her like a shroud. She clutched her throbbing head, struggling to regain her senses. As her vision cleared, she found herself in a dimly lit room, walls lined with cracked mirrors. Each reflection showed not just her face but shadowy figures lurking behind her. She whipped around, confirming the unsettling sensation that she was not alone. Lily! She called, her voice echoing off the walls. It felt like shouting into an abyss. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting shadows that danced grotesquely across the mirrors. The figures in the glass began to morph, stretching into distorted versions of Lily, their faces twisted in anguish. "Mommy!" They cried in unison, a symphony of despair tugging at her heart. "No, no, no!" She stumbled back, but the walls seemed to close in. Panic surged through her, every instinct screaming at her to escape. But escape to where? Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw a flickering image. It looked familiar, Lily's favorite pink dress, swinging in the air like a whisper exchanging promises of safety. It beckoned her, shimmering with a warmth that felt all too real. "Help me!" A voice pierced through the heaviness, unmistakably Lily's, filled with desperation. It emanated from behind one of the mirrors, just a few feet away. Sarah edged closer, heart racing. "I'm coming, sweetheart." Her hands pressed against the cold glass. But the moment she touched it, the reflection warped. The girl inside twisted, her features melting into something monstrous, eyes black as coal, a wide, grinning mouth spreading across her face. "You shouldn't have come here." The thing hissed, voice dripping with malice. Stumbling back, Sarah felt nausea wash over her. Was this the price of a mother's love? To lose herself to this torment? "Mommy!" The scream pulled her back into focus, sparking raw determination. "I'm not losing you, Lily." With defiance, she turned away from the mirror. She wouldn't look back. For all the shadows lurking, she would face them head-on. Each heartbeat rang louder, driving her forward toward a scarred door at the far end of the room. Just as she got within reach, an icy hand shot out from the wall, gripping her wrist. "Stay with us!" It wailed, echoing her memories like taunts. The cold slithered up her arm, pinning her in place. "Let go!" Sarah screamed, summoning every ounce of strength she had left. She swung her other arm, catching something solid to pry herself free. The hand faltered, retreating back into the darkness, leaving a cold sweat in its wake. As the door loomed closer, the cries of the lost intensified, slamming into her like a wave. "You belong to us!" They shrieked, a chaotic tornado enveloping her. Each syllable pulled her back, whispering promises of eternal comfort, a sweet, false sanctuary. Sarah hesitated, heart pounding against her chest. What awaited her on the other side? Another darkness, or the light that could possibly lead her to Lily? With one final deep breath, she flung the door open, bracing for whatever lay beyond. A dark hallway stretched out before her, damp and rotten, beckoning her into the depths. The very air buzzed with an electric tension, and an unsettling feeling crawled over her skin like ants. "Mommy!" There it was again, that urgent plea, rising above the chaos, but as she stepped inside, something slithered behind her, the shadows swirling into familiar forms. They stalked the edges of her vision, and she fought to suppress the panic. She was not safe yet. This was only a new battlefield. The hallway narrowed before her, morphing into a tight space filled with memories and ghosts of laughter. With each desperate step, she felt the air grow heavier, suffocated by dread and nostalgia. Then she saw it, a door at the end, slightly ajar, light spilling from the crack, vibrant and warm. "Lily!" she cried, rushing toward it, the world spinning with hope, but as she gripped the handle, the shadows surged forward, a mass of writhing souls, clawing and pulling. "You can't go. We won't let you." In that moment, Sarah understood the truth could shatter her reality, or save them both. With a guttural roar, she twisted the handle and opened the door wide, ready to face whatever lay on the other side. But just as she stepped through, she felt a searing pain, like a million icy fingers clawing at her mind, dragging her back. And then, the door slammed shut, leaving her in the dark. What chilling truth awaited her in the uncharted depths of this new world, and could she find Lily before it consumed her entirely? Darkness enveloped Sarah, the air thick with a damp, unnatural chill. Her heart hammered in her chest, each beat feeling like a countdown. She closed her eyes, summoning every ounce of courage she had. The shadows around her whispered in sinister tones, their fingers curling around her ankles, eager to pull her down into their eternal embrace. "Lily!" She called again, though her voice trembled, barely trembling above a whisper. The wayward memory of her daughter clawed at her mind. Those innocent days in the park, Lily's laughter ringing through the air like a beautiful song, felt like a distant dream now. Could she truly be lost forever? With a sudden resolve, she inched away from the door, the dim light beckoning her. There had to be a way out. She mustered her strength and stepped further into the hallway. Walls pulsed like a living thing, breathing in the silence. Distorted paintings hung at odd angles, their colors saturated, yet oddly, they reminded her of Lily's crayon drawings. But instead of joy, they combined the essence of despair and torment, eyes in the portraits following her every move, drawing on her weakness. A sudden crash echoed behind her. Spinning around, she saw the door she had just come through trembling. It shimmered unnaturally, becoming translucent, revealing a void of flickering shadows stacked behind it, howling like tormented souls. Panic boiled inside her. She had to move, had to find her daughter. Pressing forward, Sarah discovered a stairway descending into further darkness. The rotting wood creaked beneath her feet, each step echoing like a death knell. Uncertainty gnawed at her. What if she only found more shadows down there? But hesitation was not an option. She could hear Lily's voice again, soft but urgent, "Mommy, please." It propelled her down, step after step. A light flickered below, pulsing like a heartbeat and guiding her. Yet with every footfall, the whispers grew louder, just beyond her sight, clawing at her resolve. "You should turn back. You don't belong here. No. I must find her." She shouted into the echoing void, her voice breaking the oppressive silence. The shadows stilled, momentarily startled, then resumed with a sinister hum, now mocking. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow, determined to banish the doubting thoughts creeping in. As she reached the bottom, she entered a wide cavern, walls glistening with slick, dark moisture, radiating an otherworldly glow. In the center stood a pool of darkness. It pulsated softly, a swirling mass of shadows that mirrored Lily's favorite dress, hovering above its surface. Without thinking, Sarah lunged forward, desperation fueling her as she reached for it, but as her fingers grazed the pool's edge, an icy grip wrapped around her wrist. "Stay with us." The voice echoed with desperation, low and guttural, yet chillingly familiar. "Let go!" Sarah screamed, yanking her arm free. She stumbled back, staring wide-eyed as twisted, nightmarish figures began to form within the pool, faces reshaping to resemble Lily's, contorted in agony. "Mommy! Help me!" The chorus of tormented screams melded into one, creating a deafening cacophony. Every instinct told her to run, but the yearning for her daughter froze her in place. Was this some perverse trick? Suddenly, a blinding light exploded from the pool, cutting through the darkness, forming a gateway. Figures rushed forward, clawing at her, their eyes hollow and filled with darkness, a warning that they would not let her pass easily. She hesitated. Should she plunge forward into the light, or retreat into the familiar horrors of the shadows? With a visceral scream, she took a step toward the light, rallying her last droplets of courage. And then she saw it, Lily, trapped behind the luminous gateway, her face lit in fear and confusion. "Mommy!" she wailed, reaching out, but just as Sarah moved to grab her, the shadows lunged, chains of darkness wrapping tightly around her limbs, pulling her towards the edge of the pool. The chaos erupted, shadows spiraled, and white-hot pain flared in her mind. "You belong to us!" they cried. Dragging her deeper still, with a final, desperate gasp, Sarah fought against the pull, her mind a whirlwind of memories and love. "I want to let you take her. I'll find you, Lily." And with that, the darkness swallowed her whole, leaving only a flash of light and the echo of a name. What twisted fate awaited Sarah in this nightmare, and would she ever be able to escape the suffocating grip of the shadows in search of her daughter? The world exploded in chaos around Sarah, shadows clawing at her like a pack of wild animals, their whispers turning into a taunting laughter that echoed mercilessly in her mind. Just as darkness wrapped tighter around her, she felt it a flicker of something warm and familiar, a memory that momentarily dulled the terror. Lily, she managed to whisper through gritted teeth. The sound of her daughter's name transformed the cacophony into static, but the shadows twisted into shapes that mimicked the innocence of her little girl. Their nightmare expressions, snarling yet familiar, clawed at her heart. What had they done to her? In a surge of adrenaline, Sarah wrested herself from their grasp, breaking free from their chilling hold. The blinding light remained, pulsating, begging her to step closer, to save her daughter. With every ounce of willpower, she pushed against the shadows, retreating towards that glimmering beacon. Suddenly, the cold laughter intensified, filling the air like a blazing siren. You think you can escape? You belong to us, forever. Desperation clawed in her throat. She could not allow them to take her even deeper into this nightmare. Her resolve hardened like iron, each thought a step towards that light. No! She screamed, her voice rising above the sinister whispers. Yet the shadows lunged, attempting to drag her back into the void of despair. She fought back, thrashing, desperate for freedom, grasping for something, anything that I in the fray. Her fingers grazed an odd texture. It was the edge of the pool. The darkness seemed to pulse with her struggle, a living entity feeding off her fear. But beneath that veil of terror, a glimmer surfaced, a flicker of hope, a promise of her daughter. Lily! She called again, her voice echoing back at her from unseen corners. An eruption of cold wind knocked her back, but her eyes remained locked on the light. The shadows writhed, recoiling against the pulse of luminescence. Stay away from her, she roared, pushing forward with every ounce of strength, her heart racing. At last, she broke through the wall of shadows, and the light enveloped her fully. The warmth engulfed her, erasing the chill as she took a step into the glowing portal. But then the ground trembled beneath her, a harsh reality crashing in. The faces distorted, morphing into an army of anguished souls. You can't have her. They wailed, a chorus of agony twisting and nodding with every word. There was a crushing sensation in her chest. She was losing her grip on reality, and a sharp pain shot through her mind. Images of Lily flooded her first steps, the way she hugged her tightly, the sweet sound of her laughter. No! She cried, stumbling back against the pool's edge, overwhelmed. I won't forsake you, Lily. I will find you. An unexpected calmness descended. It whispered courage in her ears, lifting her spirit. The shadows raged and surged, wrapping around her body like serpents, but Sarah envisioned Lily's face, the pure love and innocence that could cut through the darkness. With newfound determination, she shouted, I choose love. I choose my daughter. As she screamed, an explosive wave surged from her, washing over the shadows. They hissed and shrieked, recoiling from her fierce resolve. In the fury of the moment, the light exploded brighter than before, casting shadows against the cavern walls. She was almost there, almost able to cross into the warmth where love awaited. An image flashed in her mind, a hidden memory, intoxicating and potent. The mirror. She recalled, the echo of an ancient story. There was something in the back of her mind, a warning. Just then, the shadows screamed in fury, a last-ditch effort to reclaim their hold on her. Their whispers turned to roars, encircling her, drowning out the voice of her daughter from infinity. As the radiant gate began to dim, time seemed to slow. With a final breath, Sarah lunged forward, determined to break free and reclaim her light. Would it be enough? And then everything faded to black. Darkness enveloped her once again, but as she floated adrift, she felt a flicker of warmth brush against her skin. The echoes of her daughter's laughter beckoned softly, growing ever closer, but the question remained, where would this journey lead her next? Was there truly an escape, or would she find herself lost in the shadows forever? The darkness pressed heavily against Sarah, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Time felt distorted, stretching into an endless void filled with echoes of anguish and pleas for salvation. But amid it all, something stirred within her, a fierce determination fueled by a mother's love. She couldn't let the shadows win. Not when Lily was still out there. The warmth that had flickered against her skin now flared bright, illuminating her heart with a blazing hope. Slowly, she began to push against the dark haze, battling through pain as she focused on the sweet sound of her daughter's voice. "Mommy." It was faint, yet it thrummed with urgency. She followed that sound like a lifeline, willing her feet to move forward. She stumbled through the shadows, each step a fight against despair. Memories rose unbidden, flaring to life in front of her, Lily laughing as she danced in the sunlight, the sparkle in her eyes when they read stories together, the way she clung to her mother during storms. Each recollection sharpened her resolve, clearing the fog that threatened to consume her. "Lily!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the sinister quiet. A rush of air whipped around her, the shadows recoiling as if her strength startled them. She could feel the pull of the light beginning to break through the oppressive darkness, illuminating patches of hope ahead. Suddenly, a ghastly laugh rang out, piercing the silence like a knife. "You think you can escape?" The voice echoed, familiar yet terrifying. Sarah froze, her heart racing as the figure of Officer Tom emerged from the depths, shadows swirling around him like a cloak. "I'm here to help you." "No." The word burst from Sarah's lips, fueled by the rejection of that deceptive charm. "You led me into this. You're one of them." The darkness began to ripple, and she felt the urge to flee. But then she remembered those soft cries echoing in despair. With renewed courage, she surged past Tom, racing toward the light as it shimmered and pulsed, beckoning her closer. "Stay away!" she shouted as tendrils of darkness reached out for her. For a moment, the echoes of laughter danced menacingly, morphing into cries of children. "Help us, find us." "Yes, I will," Sarah cried defiantly. "And I'll find my daughter first." In one sweeping motion, she closed her eyes and stepped into the brilliant warmth of the light. As she passed through, she felt the shadows splintering, bursting like bubbles under pressure. Heart racing, she opened her eyes again, and what met her was light bright, pure, and clean. Gasping for breath, she found herself in a familiar space. The living room. Her living room. "Lily!" she called, but her voice still trembled, frayed with worry and fear. "Where are you?" Just then, a soft whimper pulled her attention. Sarah turned, and there, peering from beneath the couch with wide, fearful eyes, was her daughter. With a flood of relief, Sarah crouched, arms wide open. "Oh, sweetheart!" she cried, rushing forward to embrace Lily. The little girl launched herself into her mother's arms, the warmth of her body igniting a blaze of love that chased away the darkness. "Mommy! I was scared," Lily sobbed, clutching tightly. "I'm so sorry it took so long, but I'm here now," Sarah whispered, holding her tightly. "We're safe. We're together." Yet, as she breathed in her daughter's familiar sweet scent, doubt nagged at the back of her mind. Had they truly evaded the darkness? Not wanting to dwell on it, she took Lily's hand and stood, feeling the comforting solidity of her daughter's presence. They walked slowly to the door, the shadows lingering faintly at the edges of the room but no longer a threat. Fear did not grip her heart anymore, hope had returned tenfold. "Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled slightly. "What if it comes back?" Drawing her daughter close, Sarah knelt down, looking straight into her eyes. "If it comes back, we face it together. We will always find a way." As they stepped out into the cool night air, the rain had stopped, leaving the world bright and fresh. The stars sparkled above them like diamonds, illuminating the path ahead. The weight that had pressed upon her heart for so long began to lift. Taking in the quiet of Willow Creek, Sarah's phone vibrated in her pocket. She glanced down to see a string of missed calls and messages from neighbors, each one filled with concern. And beneath it all was Officer Tom's name, his number glowing ominously. A shiver raced down her spine. Yet she knew now that she would never let fear dictate her actions again. Trusting her gut, she looked at the horizon, its possibilities spread before her like a blank page, one she would write alongside her daughter. Together, they would reclaim what had been stolen from their lives. No more shadows. No more darkness. Just a mother and her child. United, and as they walked further into the embrace of the quiet night, a sense of something powerful blossomed between them, a fierce bond, filled with love and resilience, ready to face whatever might come their way. But the truth about Willow Creek would linger, an echo of the shadows they narrowly evaded. So they kept walking forward, hand in hand, breathing in the night, a promise swirling about them. Together, they would write a different story. And they would never look back. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to help our channel grow and show your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this chilling conclusion. Let's hear how you think Sarah and Lily will continue their journey, dear friends. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.